When we were, five people, it felt huge to be 10. It was a nice way to grow up. I was an only kid, and it allowed me to really explore. I've been a skateboarder since I was 12 years old, so I may look presentable, but I'm still a little punk kid inside. Yeah. I always make the joke that like when I turn 84, I'm gonna grow like a long, like white Fu Manchu. I'm not rainbows and butterflies. That's not me. I don't look at through rose-colored glasses at everything.
What's next was just a question that no one could even begin to conceptualize, right?
Time is a choice, and I choose to spend my time with people that will challenge me or make me better. Our battle cry here at Digital Hyve is better every day. I have been incredibly lucky, but it's because I am all in on whatever it is. Now, the other piece that makes me lucky though, you talk about DNA, my instinctual nature and my passion is business. Important. I think it's really cool you guys started this thing, and I love the overall mission of making the city smaller. I think that's a really good one. So that's
real quick, Jeff. I mean, that's literally COVID and quarantine is how this concept came about. Mm-hmm. And here we are. It's we're obviously not holed up in quarantine, but the world's still living through the pandemic, and there's a lot of us who not necessarily going out and making sales calls like we used to. So we're using the network to really help each other make those connections and hopefully turn that into relationships, which ultimately turn into business.
You want me to tell? But by the way, Jeff, we know each other a year more every time Mike tells a story. So by next episode, it'll be 15 years that Mike and I have known each other.
Nice.
And then we decide, let's just do 3 people, Pete, Mike, and our guest. And this is probably episode number like 17 or 18.
Awesome. Yeah, that number gets bigger every time we talk about it too. We're on season 8 right now.
137th episode. We're doing great. When we first started the business, man, the number of employees we had was always drastically greater than the actual numbers sitting in our office. Oh, yeah. When we were, 5 people, it felt huge to be 10. Oh yeah, we're 10. And in my mind, I justified it by saying, well, we got this guy, he kind of works for us sometimes. And, this person over there, she helps us out once in a while. So that's probably, I can count them, right? And I'd get to a bigger number. And it's always that like perception of bigger that for some reason,
perception's reality, right?
I believe
this is a good time to pull something up for Jeff. So that's October of 16, if that's correct. And I don't know if that was your whole crew at the time, but that's what, 3, 6, 9, there's like 12 people there. So Jeff, tell us what's going on behind you on the wall. What is that rendering?
My wife is from Finland, and so this is a large swath cloth. I don't know what you would call it, but we took a piece of cloth from this design company called Marimekko. It's a big design thing that was founded in Finland, and we stretched it out across some canvas and made it into a piece of art. Last couple times ago that I went to Finland, I brought this over, and now it's hanging up behind me in my office. I like the line drawing, the black and white. I'm kind of a minimalist in my art department. So,
are you an Eric Clapton fan by any chance?
No, not so much. I don't know much of his material. My music interests haven't really evolved since high school, maybe college time, which consists of a lot of I'd say like indie rock and maybe some pop punk thrown in there. And
so you have a babysitter for tonight, and someone's like, hey, here's a ticket for a jet to take you any place to see a band that you want to see. Who are you going to look at?
Good question. One of my favorite shows that I've ever gone to was with my wife, and we went to go see Tegan and Sarah together, and they were really, really good. If I'm feeling nostalgic, maybe Saves the Day. It's an old pop punk band that I grew up loving. And if I'm feeling more, maybe like I've never seen Death Cab for Cutie or Postal Service. Ben Gibbard is the artist or the singer there. So probably one of those 3.
It's so funny. It's like you're talking Greek to me because I have no idea who any of those are.
I'm officially old.
It's probably less age and more that those bands aren't, super mainstream. So unless you're in that type of music, it's not, you wouldn't have a lot of context into it. Yeah, I've always been into, like a lot of independent bands, a lot of independent music. I've been a skateboarder since I was 12 years old. So I may look presentable, but I'm still a little little punk kid inside.
You know, something I've always wondered, Jeff. I mean, so how old are you? And then where did you grow up?
I think that Asian guys specifically, it's impossible to tell how old we are. And I always make the joke that like when I turn 84, I'm going to grow like a long, like white Fu Manchu. Yeah. And I'm going to be in my jet streak white hair. But until that time, I'm going to look like this. Actually, I always like to play this game when people ask me, how old do you think I am, Mike?
I'm saying 41.
41?
No, 35.
I am 30. My wife had to remind me last night. I'm 34.
Yeah. Are you really?
You're Pete, you're real close.
Yeah. So I could. So Mike, for the record, he didn't say who when we said Eric Clapton, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's right. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Finger Lakes, but I actually grew up in a place called Seneca Castle, which was all farmland. I had my parents. We had 10 acres of land. We had a very small class, like 60 kids in my graduating senior class. But it was a nice way to grow up. I was an only kid, and it allowed me to really explore. And I'd ride my bike 20 miles to get to a friend's house, or ride it back. It was just a very kind of adventurous, free childhood where I had a lot of room to stretch out and grow. It's a nice way to grow up, but I like being now, especially with work and things like that. I like being a little bit more city. 2020 has been a bitch, man. It's been not fun. And my dad got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which typically is one of the better. If you're going to get cancer, that's one of the better ones because it's very treatable. But unfortunately, he had the 1% of thyroid cancer that you can get, which is a anaplastic thyroid cancer. Very aggressive. Typically doesn't get caught in time. But fortunately, his was caught. They were able to do surgery. Then they went right into to chemo and radiation, and knock on wood, he's doing really well. He's done with treatment for now. He's looking good. So
here's another one. This is January of 2020. This was your feed on, I don't know if it was LinkedIn or Facebook, but
yeah.
Tell me what's going through your mind at that hour when you posted on New Year's Day, a whole different world than where we are today in October of 20.
It's funny because I had just thought of that the other day about that post specifically, because I had seen some other people that had posted things about, their optimistic view in 2020 and all the things they were excited about. And man, were we throwing a curveball. I'm at a point now where, and probably most people, we're settled in to what is, what post-COVID world looks like. And when I say post-COVID, I mean the start of COVID. I don't think we're anywhere near through COVID. I've been thinking a lot about. You think about, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, but he made it out. We got some bad news with my mom, and she's doing all right. I actually have some personal health stuff that I'm dealing with, and if I was born in 1950, I'd be screwed. But now there's treatment. So there's just like. There's always a way to look at things. You can look at both sides of the coin with anything. And I tend to be an eternal optimist. And I'm not an optimist in the way I'm not rainbows and butterflies. That's not me. I don't look at through rose-colored glasses at everything. More so what it is I'm very pragmatic in my optimism. I look at things like, we could look at COVID. No one could have done anything about COVID, right? We couldn't change it. You and I don't have any impact on the world in the macro sense of the world. So what can we do? We can either say, this sucks. I can't go to restaurants. My basic security is threatened. I can't see my loved ones, blah, blah, blah. Or we could, look at things and say, you know what? This gave me a time to take a moment and reflect on my life, where my priorities are, what's important to me, how I live my life. Digital Hyve has been home since the beginning of March, and I've spent a lot more time with my young kids. I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I've spent a lot more time with them than I ever would have because I'm home with them and my wife, and I very much see that as a positive. It's time that I just wouldn't have had. I got to really spend some quality time, and then I know people are complaining about it because it's, they're running around and crazy and whatever, but they're kids, and I'm just not going to apologize for my kids being in the background yelling because I like them more than anybody I'm talking to Zoom on. So, sorry, no offense, but
this is something that you just spoke about, loving your fate. You can't do anything to change what happened yesterday.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can only deal with what's coming next. And I had kind of a similar place in my mind that you came to. My mom during this was diagnosed with breast cancer, right? And I'm driving down the road one day, and I just had this peace wash over me despite everything was crazy. What's next was just a question that no one could even begin to conceptualize, right? And it washed over me that I can't change any of this. I can only be thankful for what I have in effect tomorrow. And you summarized it probably more elegantly than I did in the way you described it. It was just kind of cool to hear you kind of touch on some stuff that was relative to the ways I'd been feeling.
Yeah, no, Pete, spot on. I couldn't agree with you more. We're in a place that, any disruption, any change is hard. We as humans psychologically have it's hard for us to change. We gravitate towards comfort. I always point to Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you think about COVID, because it disrupted everything. Every layer of what the basic human needs was threatened. All we really can do is assess it, synthesize the information, and say, this is what's happening in front of me, and I'm either going to put a positive lens in front of myself and say, all right, this is what I control, and this is what I don't control, and everything that I can control, I'm gonna move forward in a positive way, and everything I can't control, it doesn't matter, right? Like I can't control it, so why spend any mental space on it? If there's literally things that I have no control over, oftentimes I'm like, I'm just so lucky to live in America and have enough money to buy food and provide for my kids and have the opportunity to learn. We live in an age that there's information is so incredibly abundant. How could you not be grateful for what is there? And I also have a mentality of abundance, as there's enough for everybody to win. Yeah. 2020, it's a lot of things have been awful, but a lot of things I think are going to get a lot better. One of my favorite quotes is, "A smooth ocean never made a skilled sailor." Right? Yeah. It's a Franklin Delano quote, and I just so believe that. I just so believe that if you don't go through these choppy waters, how could you ever become a great sailor? So let's talk about business for a second. I've been very fortunate in the business world. If you, when I graduated college from Oswego back in 2007, I hadn't done an internship. I was never a great student. When I first got out of school, I put out 300 resumes in 3 months. It's not an exaggeration. I did over 300 resumes in 3 months, and applications and cover letters and all that stuff. And I only got 2 interviews out of those 300 applications. I didn't have a network. I wasn't savvy in that world, and I got lucky. I was fortunate enough to got interviewed. I was interviewed at a TV station. The guy that hired me took a complete flyer on me. They actually had a offer letter written up for somebody else, and we got along and we were joking. And he's like, "Yeah, I think you could make a career out of this." It was a account executive position, sales position. So we have that in common.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Mike. Our guy is saying that it's luck. He put out 300 resumes.
So I'll come to that, Pete. I think luck is putting yourself in a lot of opportunities to get lucky.
That's right.
Right. That's right. I think that it's a combination between I'm willing to do what it takes. And that's the advice that I give a lot of younger people as they break into their careers. You have to do more than someone else is willing to do. If you want to be successful, that's really the barrier. And it doesn't need to be 10x. It needs to be that much more, because that's what makes you stand out. Yeah. The difference between 1 and 2 can be this, and it can be this.
Yeah.
If you're number one, you're number one, right? And so you make an excellent point is that I have been incredibly lucky, but it's because I am all in on whatever it is. Now, I've actually had 4 business coaches through the history of Digital Hyve. I very much believe in coaching, mentorship. I very much believe that, I'd be stupid not to. This is my first time owning a business. So if I'm not looking for advice, then I'm ignorant. right?
Yeah.
And so I've worked with Tim Ahern, who you may know, and we still actually do for leadership coaching and things for our leadership team. Tim was really one of our first business coaches and has helped build a foundation for us and values. I have Mike, I mean, even Mooney, right? Pat Mooney is one of the biggest, most instrumental people in my life in helping me understand business. I mean, he had an agency for longer, than I did. And when I first came to him and said, hey, let's partner up right away, he kind of took me under his wing, and I've learned so much from Pat. Going back to what we were talking about before, I enjoy the work. I've always tried to follow the things that get me amped up and just triple down on those things and punt the rest to give to people that are smarter and better than me. And I think that's part of the key to it, right? And then to me, that's not being humble. It's just like I've been fortunate to find a path that allows me to do the things that I want and enjoy, which then naturally, I'm better at them because I enjoy them. I'm always astounded and grateful that so many people are willing to work with me and make me better. And that's really all the credit that I can take for any amount of success, is that I've been fortunate to work with incredibly smart, talented, hardworking people that are just amazing.
Well, and you're the face of the company too. I mean, it's between of you and Jake's like, Jeff, you go out there and talk to the crowd.
Jake is the execution behind all of this. And without that, there is no company.
You got the street smart, and I'm a big believer in common sense and street smarts and the ability to just get people to get behind you. And you had a thought, and you said, hey, let's do this. And people were like, sign me up, let's go.
Look at Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? I'm not saying you're Steve Jobs because he was a lunatic, but and he didn't have all the technique. Woz was the guy that was really, crafting everything, and he was the marketing guy. He was the voice. He was the face. And I mean, you can't deny their success.
So for Jake and I think one thing we did really well was we kind of cut out our corners. We defined what, our lanes, and then we got really good at doubling down on our lanes and not stepping in each other's lanes. We've had that, analogy to us before is the Jobs and Woz thing. Like there is value. Everyone brings value. It's just about uncovering what that value is, and then going in hard on that, and then punting the rest off to somebody that's smarter and better. Everyone, Jake and I are a lot more like brothers than we are friends, and I mean that. Like he is my family. We have gone through shit that most people do not go through together in life, and so we are connected to the hip. If we had met each other I would do anything for my family, and that's the whole reason I'm doing what I'm doing, as well as trying to help shift generational poverty for those that are, haven't had the same equity in life. That's also very important to me. I have a goal in life that's much larger than running a digital marketing agency. That's even a wider aperture than just raising my own family. I want to make a large impact in the world where people are able to have a starting line that's closer to others because of the work that I'm involved in. That's a very important aspect. And changing and shifting generational poverty and getting people, breaking the cycle, like you talked about, Pete, very important to me. I just want people to think part of why I am able to accomplish things in my life is because I know what I want in life. And I think that's a really important statement. People oftentimes have goals and aspirations, but they don't really truly understand the why behind what they are doing. And if you don't have a destination, then how are you going to create a roadmap?
Really appreciate you investing this time because I really feel it is an investment. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great conversation. Thank you guys for having me. It's really fun and it's good to catch up. I love
Jeff. Always nice to see you. Thank you. Please send my best to Sarah and to Jake.
I will.
And can't wait to see you on the street again.
Okay, guys. Same here. And thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun.